Well, great moment to you. This, to you, and you, and you. This is Hilton Milan, Hilton G. Milan for Divine Dude. Thank you for tuning in. Tuning in is not just here, and not just with my friend Stephen. What have you got to say about tuning into the divine?
Well, we get a chance to do it as long as we're alive and even after we're alive. The idea is that there is a omnipresent energy, and we can attune ourselves to it. And when we do that, our life is better, and we make our life better with other people. We make their life better.
Amazing, amazing. And making that better is, what about better is now, and like it's already great, like greatness on demand? I've heard that as an acronym for God.
Yeah, well, if it's not done in the present, it can't be done. It's in the present moment. When you attune into the present moment, that everything is...
And you flow and dance with it.
You flow and dance. Dance is a good word. It's a kinesthetic quality. It's a
Yes.
movement.
Mm-hmm.
And you ride it. You're riding the wave. You're riding the cosmic wave.
Yes.
If you fall off, you get back on.
Does everyone have a cosmic wave?
Yeah. The cosmic wave gives us light and gives us life and allows
Actually,
us to
isn't that
express.
right of birth?
By right of birth, it's like the life is a sound and a light, and it's infused into us, and it's a love, and we express that into the world, or we shut down and don't do that.
So it's not just a love of birth. It also encompasses, dare I say, a love of death, but more importantly, a love of the infinite, which includes everything and everyone.
Well,
What am I missing?
You're not missing anything. That's one thing you go with.
Whoa.
But whether it's life or death, it's acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
Are we into the 22-minute segment now?
We are in, yes.
Okay. Because there's just a story I wanted to tell.
Please.
You and I talked about Bruno Bettelheim,
Yes.
a psychiatrist.
I'm new at this, so I'm just putting a timer on to help guide us all here.
Well,
So,
do that, 'cause
yes.
we all need guidance.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. And we're really sort of nicely ready to go, and with the aid of technology, my gosh. So please, Bruno Bettelheim, doctor, isn't it?
Yes, he was a psychiatrist, he was a doctor.
Yes, please.
He died around in the 90s, 92, 94.
Yeah.
And
How young was he?
he was an old man, thank
Yeah.
goodness. But the
An ancient.
Well, in a certain way, he had ancient wisdom that came with him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens was that he was in Germany during World War II and pre-World War II, and the Nazis came to his house
Yeah.
and arrested him, and it looked bad, because it was bad. And he looked at his wife and his child, and he communicated with his eyes, and they said goodbye. And at that point, the Nazis shot his wife and shot his son in front of him. And he was totally annihilated, destroyed. And he's waiting to be killed, and they wouldn't kill him. They took him to a concentration camp, and he had such an agony from this experience. He couldn't live with himself. He had such hatred towards his persecutors.
Yes.
And when they marched him into the camp, what happens, there was a pile of potatoes there. And he was going to grab some of these potatoes, but they're uncooked. And what happens if you eat uncooked potatoes in large amount, it expands and it kills you. And this was a joke that the guards were doing. And somehow, he figured it out, because he did have an understanding, and so he knew he couldn't take that. Other prisoners took it and died.
Yes.
And it's like, so he's in his cell, and he's in such anguish.
This is a doctor, so he was serving life well and in a real contribution to society, and totally annihilated, or at least appearing of being annihilated. What happened?
Well, he was a very intelligent man. He would do these abstract puzzles in his head.
Okay.
And so one time he abstracted from his physical environment so deeply,
Yes.
he forgot where he was, he forgot who he was. And when he came back from that, he realized that everybody was a victim. Himself, the guards, the attack dogs, everybody was a victim. And he, at that point, forgave everyone, which it's a real tough one.
You know, I've heard the expression, forgive everybody everything, but I hadn't incorporated into the context was everyone is a victim. And if we have that type of universal, powerful, profound, palpable love, that's the divine.
That is a divine, and he embodied it. And what happens is the guards stopped beating him. And the one guard that he met at the very beginning,
So he forgave his hate, but didn't everyone hate around him, or what?
everybody hated around him. And he told his friends, he said, stop hating and you'll stop being beaten, or it'll be easier. He says, I stopped hating everybody, and one of the guards told me he's leaving the door open so I could take potatoes and put them on hot pipes. And so at the end of the day, I have more to eat. And the people said, all I have is my hatred. And none of those people made it out alive. But he changed his level of consciousness, and he attuned himself into the divine, although he didn't call it divine. He changed his state of consciousness, allowed spirit to flow through, and he survived.
What did he call it, do you know?
Well, he was
Or what do you feel it is, or was for him?
it was the highest level of functioning of a human being,
Yeah.
what we truly are. And so he went all through this,
Yes.
and he made it through the war. And after the war, he became a psychiatrist in New York, in USA.
Yes.
And what happens is that he went around and he saw children biting chunks of flesh out of themselves and beating themselves and generally destroying themselves. And he said, I've seen the same symptoms in the concentration camps. And there's that self-hatred and the hatred of others, because when you hate somebody, it goes out and harms the person. It also harms you. It's a two-way street, two arrows. So he would heal these kids because he had healed himself. Now I have something here I want to read,
Yes.
because it's not part of what, it's part of my experience when I was telling this story, or reminding it,
Yes.
reminding myself of it. Okay. Mercilessly, the guard struck him in the face with an unrelenting ardor. In his cell, he tasted his blood, the blood of Israel, so bitter, so sweet. It was the blood of the grape on the vine of God, though crushed, would produce a holy wine, intoxicating rapture. He danced a drunken dance, the dance of spirit, raising his hands in surrender. He became his own light in a dark place, a candle to light other candles. I will accept all. I will forgive all. I will not become what I hate. I will drink deeply of the holy wine that will intoxicate all who partake, all who drink in my essence. I will do more than endure. I will prevail over evil within me and without in the world. The blood of Israel will be redeemed, transmuted in me, for I have become the holy wine. So if you love your children, and no one can light the candle of their soul, bring them to Bruno, for in him the circle of humanity is unbroken, and the holy wine of love, it flows freely. I'm going to do one thing now, one other thing, then we'll come back. I'm going to make some physical movements, which I'm going to spontaneously produce. And it's going to be the whole story, everything we've talked about, but
Yes.
now in terms of movement.
Yes.
And I don't need to talk, just watch the body.
That's going to be a good trick for me, but I do see a bit of an essence, a bit of contrast, and a bit of shadow light, and I feel it, and gosh, it is a little bit divinely beautiful. Thank you.
Feel the energy,
All right.
because there's movement. The
Yes.
movement has energy. Okay?
All right.
Okay. Because
Yes.
it's like Isadora Duncan, a dancer. She said, "If I could say it, I wouldn't have to dance it." So for those that can appreciate dance more or movement, the whole thing is expressed in those dance movements. It's condensed, concentrated.
Even though you're no Isadora Duncan, that you do her homage in that her movements expressing divine, you also in that movement, I actually felt that presence moving outside of me. Everything I hoped for in others was just there and there,
Amazing.
and able to articulate it and see the movement of it. That it actually, the energy is also still there.
Yeah, there is. It stays for a long time. This is a very important. Listen to what Hilton just said, because you make it your own. You make your own story. It's your narrative. It's what I say is of a lower level of importance. It's what it means to you, because when you put your own words to it, when you tell your own story, when the narrative goes within, it changes your life and changes the life of people around you.
So your movement and your stand, then you were generating, and giving energy as you're receiving,
Yes.
and in the breath, and the power of the in-breath, listening, consciousness, awareness, oneness, and even in the holding, the true silence.
Yeah, it's from out of.
And then also in the releasing, being fully human.
Well, what you said about the breath, the in-breath, the holding, the out-breath,
Yes.
that's the breath of the universe. When we can do that truly, we are the universe.
And then it's also, as within, so without, then the universe. And for all the people here, in this studio, not presently seeing, yet always recognized and holding space for the all in all,
Yes.
and also for the we that are present.
You can see it in children, and I've told this story before. It's like children are close to spirit. When they're born, they're with spirit. And it's like up until a certain age. And the story I told before, I shall tell again.
Yes.
This 4-year-old there was a new kid in the family.
Yes.
And he says to his mother and father, I want to talk to the kid alone. And they left the room, but they had a recording device, so they know what's
one
going
of the
on
baby
there.
monitors, yes.
Baby monitor, because they don't want sibling rivalry. And he says, baby, he says, I've come to talk to you because you've just come from God and you know God. And I'm beginning to forget. Well, we're born with the divine and we have to go back to it, Otherwise, we begin to forget. And we live in terms of our persona, of what we're doing. We live in time and space, and we need to live in time and space. But while living in time and space, we're living in eternity.
And living in the divine
And
eternity.
living in
and
the
the divine
divine.
eternity now.
Now.
And now.
Now.
And now. And now. And forevermore now. Now.
And even when we fall out of now, we're still living in now.
Yes.
But we can come back to it if we drop some crumbs back, or if we remember, we come back. And then you can begin to live there for longer and longer periods.
Explain, please, or help me understand dropping crumbs and how I can remember to use the crumbs to go back and forth and in eternal presence.
Well, what some people do is and especially with Hilton, they feel love in their heart. That brings them to God. And the people that practice bhakti yoga,
Yes.
they love God so much, they do what they call guru bhava. They dissolve in the presence of God within them in their heart. Now, you can use your heart for that. If you're not a heart person, you can meditate to the point where you say a word, like the Hindus use Om, so do the Buddhists.
Yes.
The Sufis use other words. And when you say those words and you infuse them with your attention, you've got to have your attention focused. And then you ignite that presence within you. It never went away. That presence was always aware of you, but are you aware of that presence? And by using words or going to the heart or doing deeds of kindness, not because you want a reward, when nobody can see what you're doing, that's when the kindness matters. Mm-hmm. Like Christ said that about when you want to do a good deed, go into the cell of yourself. The cell in terms of a monistic cell. Mm-hmm. And nobody has to see it. It's between you and God. Mm-hmm. And when you start acting in the world for God's sake, God's will, instead of your own, then
Is it okay to use the expression, that I've heard and I'm repeating, that, God, greatness on demand?
I like that. And it's like, and the demand is a very humble demand.
Right.
But it's like, if you don't ask, then you're not given.
And it's also like the asking and then being the servant of that greatness. And sometimes, I know for myself, many times, I haven't been able to access greatness, and I've been struggling with good and bad and that duality. That's why this idea, like, I'm just a dude, but, and there's so many dudes on the planet, and dames,
Yes.
that have, they're really working on finding themselves.
Yes.
But then finding that themselves, then it's, okay, now what? Okay, where did I come from? Where am I going? We don't really know. But there's some intelligence that is running this whole cosmic thing beyond evolution. Because there's not enough stupidity in there.
Yes.
There has to be a greater intelligence.
Beyond religion.
Right. And then that divine, it's sort of like, so how do we bring ourselves to that? And, moment by moment by moment.
Well, I saw my niece the other day. I haven't
Yes.
seen her. I haven't seen her for a few months, and I didn't even know she existed. And
How young?
she's 4. She's my
Ha.
same age as my granddaughter.
Yes.
My granddaughter's going to be 4 Sunday. She's going to be 4 on Sunday. She's getting over the hill. So anyway, we're interacting and we're talking about something, and I said to her, you can use words when you're upset about stuff. And I talked about Om, and
Yes.
I talked about some other words, and I talked about phrases that make you feel good.
Okay.
And she started making her own words.
Huh.
When you start making your own words, it comes from a sound, and then formulate it into a word, and the word goes back into your inner sound. Each of us has a keynote. And I said to her, that is wonderful. The sounds I talked about are external. I says, the sounds that you're talking about, and I says, and keep them secret. You've told me, and I'm going to forget them, but keep them as your own. And then I said to her, I'm not going to use her name, I don't want her
Yeah.
here. I says, I I love you. And she looked at me and she says, and I love you. And there was a divine moment.
Mm-hmm.
So we can ignite the flame within another. Another can light the candle within us with their candle. It's a matter of surrendering and listening and feeling and seeing, and even a fragrance and a taste. When spirit comes through and leads you in a certain direction, you surrender to it. It's not my will, it's thy will.
So it's and in that it's divine moments. And, some people call them miracles. Just that preciousness. And there was no age there, as you were saying, your granddaughter and yourself. So, more than half a century, and
almost a century.
hush. There is, my late wife, you would say there is no age, and she was my divine dame. And she was an ageless being, totally remarkable, way beyond her years.
Yes.
And, she had everyone guessing. And truly, she was such a dame, shot from the hip. And, she had to be at least a quarter of a century, younger. Or she appeared at least a quarter of a century younger than she actually was. Now, it's really quite imaginable, maybe even several decades. And I had the privilege of being married to my divine dame for 21 years.
Amazing to me.
And, and with that, I actually came back from the white light. I had a near-death experience.
Yeah, you talked about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And, being called up for life review, and the only person I felt like that I was willing to come back to the planet for, and I had a moment of consciousness while I was on the table in the hospital.
Yes.
And I then this one relationship, this new friendship, I just wanted to come back and go for walks with her. And I didn't want to not be on the planet while she was here. I wanted to be able to serve her and love my friend. Little did I know that I'd ask her to marry me in less than a year, and that she'd say yes, because we would have both been scared beyond we would have run like turkeys in opposite directions. And we kept on trying to set each other up. I was interviewing my friend's dads, and she was interviewing her girlfriend's daughters. She wanted to find some young debutante. I wanted to find some retired diplomat or, executive. And because I thought she should be swept off her feet. She was such an incredible dame, a being, really a spiritual being. And we recognize that in both of us. And that life, that recognition of light.
Yes.
And she would always say to me, let your light shine. That recognition caused me to want to come back to the planet and learn to live lovingly. And even in her translation, in her passing, she said, don't you follow me too soon. You stay here and you make sure you tell our story.
Wow.
So that it gives women hope.
Yes.
And, as much as we're men and we're dudes, to all the dames on the planet, we wouldn't be here without you.
Yes. And it'd be very boring, too.
Oh, total. So, we do get to collaborate and work together and love together and contribute together. We are one community. We are one life, infinitely expressed. That's a bit of the divine for me. And and I guess I'm not that challenged. I'm doing it now. But what can we do? What can I do better to express or inspire access to more people exploring the divine within them and giving the divine to the circles around them?
Well, look at the theme of this show.
Okay.
Divine dudes, divine dames.
Yeah.
You're presenting that to the world, and the people that you've interviewed, and
yes.
I've been here, you're bringing out the best in them. So when a person is making money marketing something, what you tune into is the fact that they got an award as an entrepreneur teaching kids how to make money instead of getting lost in the ghettos they live in. So by us interviewing people, we're putting that into the world that not only is it okay to make a living, you can tune into a higher purpose in your life
And make a life.
and make a life, a full life, So you need both. You need to have your head in heaven, and for goodness sake, your feet have to be planted on the earth too. And there's a figure you see it in books where it's the figure of the human being, and he is like this.
Oh, yes.
He's got his legs apart like this, and he's like this. This is what man can do. Man can raise his gaze and raise his hands to God.
Yeah, the Da Vinci Man.
Yeah, Da Vinci Man, that's it.
Yes.
And it's like and his feet are on the earth.
Yes.
And what has been done by modern,
And this energy that comes in, it's as above, so below,
as above, so below. That aspect of
as
it.
one.
As one. You are one with the universe, you let it come through. Now, here's what the advertisers and society has done.
Yes.
The reverse image is the person is upside down, grasping the earth, which is the satanic image. He's lost his godliness. The idea is you don't have to grasp the earth. You're already on it. You can raise your hands to heaven.
We're all on it. As long as we're in human form, even any other life form, we are on the earth.
Yes.
And we are of the earth, but we are not the earth.
Good way to put it, yes. We are more than that. We are that, and we are more than that.
Yes.
And it's like when we begin to act, we take small steps. And we may go back. You may take 10 steps forward, and you may take 9 back. You might take 12 back. But eventually you take 10 steps forward, and you only go back 3. And then you take 10, and you only go back 2, until you can get momentum. And when you get momentum, you affect other people. They can sense your energetic flow. You rise to the full vibration of being a human being. And human beings recognize human beings. And even if they're heavily aberrated and having a difficult time, and whatever it is, when they have contact with you, for that period of time, they recognize that there's more, and they can activate that divinity within themselves. Because as that young lady that was sitting here before said, she's a goddess. As we're gods, we're all gods and goddesses, but we have no recognition of it. So you're not above anybody or below anybody. We are all of spirit.
All infinitely unique expressions.
The unique part, yes, that's the only way that you attuned to spirit.
So that's not equality force, it's actually equanimity, so that we all have equity to express and discover and develop and find both the best in ourselves and the worst in ourselves, and then to find the neutral or the natural way, or isn't that where divinity is?
Well, from my point of view,
Yes.
I know that within me, I have demons and I have angels. But I also have a sense of the divinity that's above those two opposites, because those two opposites are of the mind and
Yes.
of the emotion.
The good-bad
and of the
duality.
Yeah, but it's like we are all more than that. We are souls. And what is the soul of a person? When you get very quiet, there's an awareness, a point of awareness that isn't for or against anybody. And it's like if you're in the healing professions and you get into that place, you say what needs to be said, you do what needs to be done, you operate on a person if you're a doctor, but it's from that high level. And I remember this article I read, and it was this neurosurgeon. He does surgery like for anywhere 10, 12, 15 hours, and with his team, and he listens to opera and music that he loves, and they discuss philosophical issues. So he's functioning from a high soul level, so that his motor sensory acuity is enhanced. Now, if you, like I said in the article, If your doctor listens to heavy metal, well, maybe it's what you need. But I
Yes.
would prefer my doctor to be attuned to the highest aspect of his nature so he can perform his function in the world.
Yes.
And you see the same thing with in art. Like some people, their art uplifts everybody
Yes.
because there's the soul beyond the dualities can use this note or that note, this yin, this yang aspect, and
Yes.
combine them in such a way that it reminds you that they both sprung from a higher place, the neutral place of spirit.
So the neutral place isn't necessarily higher, it's the infinite space.
It's
Because
this-
the higher, lower still
Higher doesn't, it doesn't, I'm just using it as for understanding.
from
using
the
words.
omni,
But
from the
it's,
all.
but it's like from that place,
Yes.
there is no inside, outside. It's like, it's a sense of omniscience,
Yes.
omnipresence, omnipotence. And you flash on it and you leave it and you flash on it and you recognize, oh, that's what that means. And then if you do your inner work and your outer work, you may learn to live in there for a while. And then you come across people that are actually citizens of that world.
Yes.
And you've earned it karmically because your vibration is high enough to come across these people and you recognize them.
And they recognize.
And you recognize that you can see them. You know, maybe you got sunglasses on because they're very bright, but you can still, you recognize them and you see them and you feel them. And then there can be a transmission.
Yes. A connection, a collaboration, a creation or a recreation.
Yeah, it's like a tuning fork. Bang, like this, and it's like, that's their vibration, and you begin to vibrate at that level.
Yes.
So it's like you always could vibrate at that level, but you had to actually have the kinetic energy transmitted to you. Then you go, oh, I've had this experience before, but now you're living on that level for
Yes.
whatever length of time.
You know, we
Like-
both have a glass of water, and you know, water is a channel, isn't it? Or can be
Well, it's
hydration.
It's well, I've spoke of this before. How some researcher in Japan, and I won't say his name because I don't remember it. I don't want to destroy it. And he would
Emoto.
yes, that's the gentleman.
Yes.
And he just put the word love on the water, a glass of water, and it would become more ionized. And he put a bad word on it, and it would become deionized. And
So
he
I'm
would do-
doing. I'm just envisioning in my mind's eye love
and that would do it.
on the water and imprinting the water. You know, molecularly, majestically. You know, miraculously. You know, minutely.
And it works with water, it works with plants, and it works with children. Because up until maybe 1947, 48, kids in orphanages wouldn't be picked up. And instead of maybe whatever the number was, let's say it was 10 per 100,000 or 20 per 100,000 or die, and for the orphanages it was like 200. So it was like 10 times as much because they weren't picking kids up. And when the nurse would pick them up, they would give them that sense of comfort and love.
And
which was
connection.
connection, and say, you have a place in the world. I'm a nurse, I'm holding you, I love you right now. And that's the vibration. And it's like, and so they had a reason to be here. Otherwise, they were checking out wholesale.
You know, I am understanding at least a glimpse that, you know, our program, Divine Dude, you know, and as I say, I'm just a dude searching for, finding, sharing, expressing, asking you and my audience, where's the divine? Thank you for sharing the divine, being the divine, inspiring the divine, expressing it.
Yeah, and everybody, please be in touch with Hilton, and indirectly through me,
Yes.
indirectly me. And it's like, the more people that attune to this, the more global and collective it becomes. If you have a question, if you want to know something,
Yes.
be in touch with us. You know, it's like,
And you know, in the being in touch with us, please be generous. Be generous with yourself and be in touch with yourselves. For a minute.
Yes.
Okay, 10 seconds if that's hard. 10 minutes, whichever it is, but tune in.
Tune in and recognize that you have a story parallel to the one we're speaking.
Yes.
And that story has value too, because that story is uniquely your own. That story takes you to your own divinity.
And that's there for each and every one of us, isn't it?
Each and every one of us.
No one is denied that unless we don't allow our minds and our hearts and our bodies and our circumstances.
Yes.
To divine together.
Interesting word, yes.
Into till our last breath. And then whatever is thereafter. But then it's like always living, always loving, always lightening or enlightening it's not even our load. I was possessive and attached to my load of experiences, and now I'm realizing, oh my gosh, it's just here, just presence, it's enough.
Yes. It is. It's present and it's enough.
I can only thank you so divinely for your presence, dear Stephen, and for all your presences. Yes.
Yeah, it's mutual. Because the fact that you and I can resonate back and forth produces a third force, which is spirit.
Yes. And that's not just us. That's everyone.
Yes.
For everyone. By everyone. And it's opt-in as you wish and as you choose.
Yes.
Eternally ready. We wait. We serve. We live. We love.
We live. We love. We open ourselves.
We learn. We laugh.
We become as children again, but adult children, but aware children.
I've begun practicing laughing at myself.
You must spend a lot of time laughing.
And I can be at times I've been so serious and significant, and it just hurts too much trying to be too much. And I did. And now it's all like, okay, I am what I am. I is what I is.
I am what I am. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. And there's something about playfulness.
Yes.
Spirit has always been playful to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember playing at my grandmother's place, and I was completely involved in it. And the playing just allowed energy to flow through me. And I looked up, and there was a small chandelier, and I could see angels dancing around the chandelier.
Yes.
And to me, that was quite natural. Like, oh yeah, that's a nice place to dance because it's crystal and it's like shining like this, and there's rainbow colors.
Yes.
And it was like I was open to see divinity every place, always, because I was in a state of innocent play. And that's why when you come across somebody like that, or you're with children, you sense that there's another dimension going on. And in that movie, What Dreams May Come, it was the other one, the baseball one. If you build it, they will come.
Yes.
It was like all the people that were attuned could see the baseball players, but the woman's brother couldn't see it because he hadn't come to that level, but he could sense something there. And when his time was right, when his niece almost choked, then he says, when did these guys get here? Because he changed his vibrational frequency. Now he could resonate on that level. It's always been there. When we change our vibrational frequency, then we attune to what was always there in the present, now.
What are the best steps that we could offer in, 3 simple steps?
Dance steps. Just dance it.
Yeah. So movement anyway, even if one is not so mobile, if one can twist in a chair or twist one's body and do different things. And actually dance is not limited like, we can dance with our fingers, can't we?
And we can dance in our mind. We're more than the body. And it's like there's a certain freedom in that type of movement. And it's like we can sing, we can lift up our arms and express whatever we want. We can paint. We can do whatever we want. We can.
I've just danced with my breath, and I've never done that before. And it was, oh my gosh.
The breath is a dance. That's one of the ways they express it, is a dance. And it's like when we're rhythmically breathing and we're aware of it without interfering it. Because what happens is you become aware of your breath, you can't breathe. When you're aware of your breath and you just let it be what it is, that's attuning to
But
a
be
higher
consciously aware of it.
Yes.
And then,
Without interfering.
yeah. Can't I play with it a bit and speed it up a little or slow it down or sometimes hold it a bit and just notice different patterns? Isn't there some, development or divine development available there?
Yes, there's various, like pranayama in the Hindus.
Yes.
And also when you're chanting, your breath is regulated. Like, when, what is it? Tibetan chant.
Yes.
So I get to feel the sense how my breath had been changed by chanting. Chanting itself changes the breath.
And then the breath changes the body.
Yes.
Because it infuses the body and transforms the body and enlivens the body. Or if it's constricted.
Well, you can see that. Like, if children breathe from their belly, as we get older, we have certain thoughts and feelings which constrict the body, and we can barely breathe. I go, I don't. Whereas children, they breathe fully. They're aware of it. They just let it happen. And as we get older, we constrict ourselves mentally, physically, in the physical aspect is our breath, the breath of our life.
So it's finding our own divine breath, and the divine breath is not static. It is so.
Yes. But I want to attune to something beyond the breath. There's an inner presence we have. I won't mention people's name, but this person I know well, she had two playmates, Jean and John.
Yes.
And they were around and she played with them. She could see them. She interacted with them. And when she got to a certain age, they left. And she was talking to her sister. And her sister said, remember we used to talk to Jean and John? And this person said, yeah, I do. She said, I wonder where they went. And her sister broke out laughing because that wasn't part of the adult world. But those kinds of connections connect you to spirit where everything is possible. And when you can breathe a certain way and when you can chant or sing certain songs, they attune you to the inner light and inner sound and your love of your higher purpose.
What if someone doesn't know what their higher purpose is? Or even their purpose?
Well, that's most of the world. That's where the chaos comes from. That's where the destruction comes from. Like, I don't want to go too far off topic, but
Yes.
but some business people, they do business with people and countries that are destroying. And the thing is, they couldn't destroy if nobody did business with them. But you can make a great living and be attuned to spirit. You don't have to cut spirit out of your life. People will be raised because you don't do business with them if they're doing something that's wrong. If you do business with people that are doing wrong, you're bringing more of that wrongness in the world.
And that suffering and that lack for others in order to have more for ourselves, rather than saying, this is enough for me and let me contribute to the living and the being of others.
Yes. That is the key.
Our planet, our people have become, in First Nations of the world, so abundant and still so driven by, needing and wanting more. And even within our great First Nations, we have the best of the worst, the best, but also people that have fallen through the cracks and are living the worst of the worst.
Yeah, like, we have to do something. And I've talked to some of the people I've seen here before. Okay, if you give a person a fish, you feed them for the day. If you teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people are so low on the scale that you can only give them a fish. Well, then you need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that you can teach how to fish, you do that. Because I heard on TV, I won't get specific, but some nation said it's going to give points to people, and if they don't score high enough on the points, they are not part of the society. And Western powers are looking at this because it's a machine. The machine has no heart, has no soul. It all makes sense from the mechanical.
And the numbers.
It makes sense with the numbers.
But the numbers don't incorporate everyone. They just have the range that they want, and everything else out of that range is marginalized, or worse.
Well, the system is supposed to be for human beings, not human beings for the system.
Or just human doings.
Human doings. It's like, the broad spectrum of humanity is humanity. When we say that this section of humanity isn't human,
Yes.
that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Iron Age. Like, there could be a golden age when we recognize that everybody has something unique to emanate into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the people at the vanguard are not saying that people here have no right to be human. Often you can see it with Down's children, that they have a loving heart.
Yeah, they're so full of light.
Yeah, and it's like someone that's got a PhD is so cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens if we take the PhDs and say, you don't have a right to live because there's no essence coming from you. There's no light coming from you. We take humanity for what it is,
Yes.
and we do the best with it. And we try to do what Bruno did,
Bruno
Bettelheim.
Bettelheim. I
Drink-
want to learn more about him. What an extraordinary being. What a
Well-
divine being. What a divine dude.
Well, I added my own story to his basic line.
Yes.
It's like variations on a theme.
Yes.
Everything is the way it is. Some of the stuff I wrote is my excursions into my own creative understanding, because he didn't talk about being in the cell.
Right.
But if I put myself in his place, in his consciousness, it's painful, but by displacing myself from here into the narrative, into the dream, into the story, there's a whole story around that that you get firsthand. And the beauty of someone that's written well
Yes.
is that you can enter the story, or you go to the movies, you leave the seat and you're in the scene and you identify with the hero or whatever, or the anti-hero, whatever it may be.
Yes.
So you learn something more. Well, that's what I've done with this, the basic story,
Yes.
and then I do variations on the theme, and I take it into different keys, and I come back to the story, but I have a deeper understanding of that person's experience by empathetically merging with him
Yes.
in that time in history.
So empathetically merging. Okay, that's a point in time in the past, and someone that lived, found a way of living, with grace or under grace, in
Yeah.
gratitude, and in greatness. That was recognized and served the community of so many people that were suffering. He lessened their suffering.
Yes.
But he was only able to lessen their suffering because he lessened his suffering
Yes.
to the 0 point, to the 1 point of one with all, and then I'm not attached to this, here's the way through.
Yes.
And that's what we're exploring now too, isn't it?
It is, in a very real sense.
And expressing and really inviting everyone that is open to tuning in, tuning up.
We'll tune you up.
Well, look, you have to tune yourself up, but there are some tools here
Yes.
that anyone can use. Please, use the tools, play with them. There's a time, when we were children, we all loved playing with toys and life.
Yes.
Now the toys that we have to play with, the biggest one is this one.
Yes.
Isn't it?
This one and this heart one.
And this one.
Yeah,
And unifying them together as one.
Yes.
Now that's divine, isn't it?
It is. And in terms of energy centers of the body,
Yes.
and again, I've said this before, I'll say it again,
And it's actually more than just the two. It's yeah.
many, whatever,
It's many.
whatever system you look at.
Yes.
But people get locked in the first three energy centers,
Yes.
which is survival, sex, and power. And it's only with the heart where there's a beginning of transcendence. And then being able to express that transcendence with your voice and having the vision of what it is, and then being one with spirit. And I'm using my hands. Last
Yes.
one with spirit, it's over my head.
Yes.
It's something like do it.
And as much as it's here, it's also from here, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And the Hawaiians,
Yes.
the kahuna
Yes.
of Hawaii, they said that the human being consists of different levels of energy.
Yes.
There's the uniapili, which is the unconscious.
Yes.
The uane,
Yes.
which is the conscious. So
Yes.
it's uniapili and the uane. And the metaphor they used, it's like a very strong person that can't see, and on his shoulders is the conscious mind, the uane, that can't walk. So you got to bring together the conscious and the unconscious and the conscious together. And when they come together, spirit, which is outside the body,
Which is the superconscious.
yeah, it's called aumakua.
Ah.
Aumakua.
Ahumakua.
Yeah,
Ahumakua.
and that's activated when,
Ahumakua.
yeah. And it's,
Thank you.
and it's like that makes them fully human. And it's like they could do amazing things. They could go across the open Pacific and navigate with the stars, leave their body, go to the island, find an island,
Yes.
and draw their physical body in the boats to where their spirit has already resided. So they come into the beach, and there's their higher self sitting on the beach,
Yes.
ready to welcome them. They got drawn. Now, I know this sounds far out. So whatever part of it you wish to imbibe, but if you're divinely intoxicated, if you can enter into rapture, you recognize exactly what they did and how they did it.
Well, thank you for being so divine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And all of you, thank you for being open to the divine. Find yourself, express yourself, divine yourself. We'll see you in the light. This is Hilton Milan. Stephen, again, thank you. And see you in the light.